Hello, so I do want to get back to doing pointers with reference to classes, but before I do that, I want to talk about making headers and organizing files. So we're going to create header files and implementations of those files within our CPP programs. And so to do that, you just need to build function prototypes in the header file, and you need to include a call to that header in whatever program you're running it with. So I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of files here. We're going to create a calculator project, and just to show how to organize your C++ projects using header files and implementation files. This helps you write cleaner code, helps keep things modular, which will give you more scalability. We're going to create a simple calculator function and split it across files to show how to do that. So to do that, I'm going to create a calculator.h file. I am going to also create a calculator.cpp file, and I'm going to create an executable file that is just called header example. All right, so we have these three files. We're going to start with our header file, and what I want to do is first create a header guard. The header guard prevents your file from being included more than once during execution of the overall program. And so, or in compilation, actually technically it compiles and it checks for the header file inclusions. So we want to make sure it includes it only once. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little if function in here, and it's going to say if not defined calculator h. If that's not defined, then we're going to define it. We have an if function here, or an if call, so we're going to have an indif. And now if it's not defined, we will define calculator h. So that's that header guard. And in this project, we're going to have an add function. And we're just including the headers here, just like we've done before on top of the class, on top of a file. We're going to include it here as a place to hold memory in it, and we're going to define that within our CPP file. So this is similar to what you'll see at the top of how we defined functions at top and implemented them below the main class or main function, sorry. Now we're going to define them in this header file. All right, so calculator.h is pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and save it. All right, so you have calculator h over here. Let's define these functions here in CPP. So I'm going to take these two functions to remind me what I've done. I'm going to put them here, and we're going to draw up an implementation for these functions. All right. Okay, so and we are going to include calculator.h. Let's do this the right way. Looks like that. We're going to include calculator.h. Now here we are going to return a plus b, and for subtract we are going to return a minus b. Okay, that's fairly straightforward. We have the int return, now we returned it. Okay, notice how we use this line here. The purpose of this is to link this file to the declarations. This ensures consistency between the header file and its implementation. Now we're going to use these functions in main, right? So everything's good. In main, this is the file that's going to have the IO stream. So we will include IO stream here. All right, and we are going to also include calculator.h. we are going to use namespace standard or namespace std, and let's define that main file. All right, in main, I'm going to define x equals 10, y equals 5. And we can output now. We can output add and add x comma y. And we can also output subtract. All right. And of course, we have that obligatory int return as is called for in the main function. All right, so we include calculator.h here too, so the compiler knows what add and subtract are when compiling main. So what happens is it includes calculator.h, so it includes the implementation. It includes the definitions, the header, if you will, of that function. That's necessary for the program to know what's going on. And in calculator.h, we are in calculator.cpp, we're including calculator.h. So everything's connected effectively. Now let's build and run this. Right. So I am going to come here and say g++. Um, I'm going to put all the CPP files here. And we'll just call this a calculator app. Of course, I can't compile it yet because I haven't saved this file. So we're going to go ahead and save this file. And there's header example. So now I should be able to compile this and we'll see what happens. All right, everything compiled. We have our calculator app. I'm going to run the calculator app. And you can see add, subtract. Okay, so make sure to include all source files when compiling. That's why we included header and calculator. If you have a bunch of source files, you need to compile it with all the source files. So calculator.h is our function declarations. Calculator.cpp is the function definition. So this sets up our prototypes, and this sets up our logic. The runner, if you will, which I have as header example, this is the application logic where the functions are used. Splitting code like this helps you stay organized and makes teamwork easier. Header files act like contracts, and C++ files do the work. All right, so at this stage, from this point forward, we should be able to break our files out like this and modularize them. We've been using main functions, a main CPP file this entire time, but now it's time for us to migrate into modularizable and scalable code. And that's all I have for this video. We will jump back into more code in the next one. Thank you.